This was a video I was thinking about making when I just read the foreword of Bloom's God Problem, and it was the question of how does a universe sprout stability from chaos? How does a plane of nothingness and only the random potential for stuff, for energy, etc., or whatever. Not nearly fully educated. But how does something like that spring forth things that remain, things that can exist, things that can persist? I think it's the same kind of answer as asking why there's so much order in the universe if things evolve using random genetic forces, random genetic accidents. It's the same as the question of, why wasn't I born into a miscarriage? And I think perhaps a comical half answer to that would be the same kind of answer to answer those other questions. And it's I wasn't born into a miscarriage, because if I were, I wouldn't be able to be asking myself this question. Okay, so that's my limited library of knowledge. Understands it. Vacuum is a kind of potential field. Nothingness is merely a kind of plane of probability, and it's kind of like, to use a metaphor that I can use to communicate my limited understanding of this, is that it's like you have, it's like you start off with a disordered deck of cards, and actually let's ditch the metaphor and let's just talk about things quasi-literally. The most basic elements, and hence the things that are kind of flipping the coin of probability every moment. The camera's clicking. I have no idea what that is. Those are the things that these fundamental things, these basic spurts of energy, or perhaps quarks or particles or something, are going to be the things that are coming in and out of existence. Or was it mini Big Bangs or something? Or I think when last time I read about this, it was something like random occurrences of time and space. And the thing is that these things were too small, which most of the time they were, because I think the smaller amount of stuff is more, has a higher probability of occurring, because it's more basic, it's more binary than a whole persistent complex pattern next to nothing. So these things are going to come in and out of existence, except if they're not born stable. If the coins, if all the dies in the world don't hit a specific set of kind of minimum pattern, minimum amount of order or stability, it won't hold together. It's as if every time you gave birth to a child, you weren't passing on genes. Let's say instead of passing on genes, You gave birth to something that was completely randomized sequence of DNA. Now, a billion to one, it's not going to be viable. This thing that you're giving birth to, it's just going to be a random pile of nothing, of garbage, and it won't be alive. It won't survive. And it's only when you get that. It's only when you get that minimum amount of order that this thing is going to be viable and it's going to continue. So that's why we're standing around in a world with so much order in terms of the genetics of living things. Is that simply the things that were not in order, the things that were not viable, that did not have enough of a kind of pattern that could persist. Just those things died. Those things went away. They had no choice but to perish. That's why we don't have seeing so much chaos. And of course, it takes a world, a whole lot of order before that order can sprout something so orderly and pattern-stricken as a thinking mind, human consciousness, intelligent individual that can ask these kinds of questions. So it's kind of a silly question for a thinking person to ask, why am I in a world of order? It's because it was simply more likely for something with your kind of orderliness to come out of a world that had a world of compounded order and patterns than for you to simply randomly appear out of the void and somehow be able to survive long enough to ask that same question. You're able to ask that question because you are intelligent, you have a sense to you, have an order to you, and that's just kind of a result of process, what is that called? Process of elimination. Persistence of the most orderly, the most pattern-wise compatible. Whatever. So yeah, so a chaotic universe of coin flipping, coin tosses, and probability. Anything that's not orderly is just going to fall by the wayside, and eventually, when you have something that's stable enough to continue, maybe eventually it reaches its end, and we don't get to a point where we have thinking human beings and that can think about the complexity of the universe, but eventually something does happen that it's able to compound itself over and over again because of its order and create, through coincidence, create more order and more stability, enough so that we reach some kind of point where we're able to have whole intellectual systems running. Alright, so that's pretty much just the idea that I wanted to get across there.